we were talking, him and one of his buddies, his friend Max, were talking about it, and he was like, I'm not as excited for the season as I normally would be. And I was like, oh, why? And he started like rattling off, I was joking about being upset about Brian Anger, but he did bring that up is, Brian Anger, DeMarcus Lawrence, Amari Cooper, Cedric Wilson. Like, these are all names that, not that they're all going to be gone, but they're all rumblings that you've heard will not be back with the Cowboys. So I'm really curious, even before any of this has officially happened, is this negatively impacting people's hopes and excitement for the next season?
I think a little bit. This is playing out the way a lot of off seasons go for the Cowboys, though. So it's not, I don't think, shocking for a 44-year-old guy to see over the last 10 to 15 years how they do it. But I do think for a 17-year-old who's really into sports for, what would you say, Brandon, for the last 5 years, would you say? Like
maybe 7. Yeah.
So this is all new to him on the way the Cowboys kind of do things. And they never rebuild and they never go all in. They're always in the middle of like, look, we don't want to really use too many future assets here.
Right.
But we also don't want to reset and start this thing over and really give ourselves tons of cap space and all this stuff for a 2 to 3 year period where we're picking high in the draft. So for that, it looks hard to go from 12-5 to a better record or as good of a record and a better chance in the playoffs if we're assuming Amari Cooper is going to be released. I know there's reports out there that maybe the Cowboys feel like they can trade him and get assets for him at this point. And I wonder if just Mike Williams, I'm wondering this I know I'm getting a little bit off topic. I'm wondering if when Mike Williams signed a 3-year, $60 million contract, if other teams go, oh crap, if that's what people are paying for a good number 2 receiver, because Mike Williams is not a number 1, then if it's like, if it's $20 million for a number 2 receiver in the marketplace, should we just trade for Amari Cooper? Because we'd be paying approximately $20 million and he's better than Mike Williams. So that being said, I'm looking forward to the season when it comes up. I think the Cowboys can win 10 or 11 games next year, but it's tough for me to really, to your son's point, think of the Cowboys being a true play, like after when the playoffs start, that they could really make a playoff run if they're missing Lawrence, Cooper, and other pieces.
From the 469, this is fair enough. Your last question inferred we were excited to begin with. Well, damn. From the 817, I love the Cowboys. Well, what excitement. They will be mediocre at best. From the 972, something is yelling 9-8 to me with a first-round playoff exit. And I just feel like everything you've heard, people have reacted negatively. Even the things like I liked. Personally, I like putting Dalton Schultz with the franchise tag. I think you got him for under market. Like, the market, we talked about this with Bobby Belt, is that they were going to be looking for somewhere in the neighborhood of potentially $13 million this season, which I get is really high. And you're going to get him for $11 million, and it's only a 1-year deal. Now, if they create a long-term deal, we can react differently to that. But I was fine with that. People seem to hate that move of putting the franchise tag on. And I know people will be like, you think this, you think that. Like, my opinions of what the fan base is colored by what everything happens around me, whether it's a fan text, Twitter, the Twolos, or the people we work with. When they all kind of say the same thing, you're right. I do make an assumption that is what the majority of the fan base thinks. And then Amari Cooper.
Can I really stop you real quick on Dalton Schultz?
Yeah.
Here's where I think you're right, or where you're coming from, is if Dalton Schultz hit the free agent market, he probably would get $10 to $13 million a year, approximately, somewhere in that range. So if you look at free agent wise, the Cowboys are not overspending on Dalton Schultz. It sounds like they're going to work out a 4-year deal or something like that.
Which then we might need to redirect and be like, well, I didn't like that for 4 years.
But then this is where I deviate from this, is I think that whoever were to give him that money, whether it was the New York Jets or the Jacksonville Jaguars, it will be the Dallas Cowboys. We know that now. I thought would be making a mistake and kind of regretting after 2 years that they gave that much money to Dalton Schultz. So I think he would get paid that money in the offseason by a team, and the Cowboys have decided to be that team. But I think that team is going to kind of regret that after 2 years.
And honestly, that's why I'm fine with if you drafted a tight end and stuck with the franchise tag. Because, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but Zach the other day in our crosstalk was like, I feel like you can get anybody or like a lot of people to do that job. And I was like, I disagree immediately. I don't think you can get a tight end, just bounce in here and put up the same numbers as Schultz, but I think eventually you could. And if that meant drafting somebody or picking somebody up on the cheap and kind of like positioning them for that, I would be fine with that. I don't need the Cowboys to sign Dalton Schultz long-term. I just didn't want them to get rid of him next year because you might still have offensive line problems. You definitely still have running back problems, and you might still have quarterback problems, and that seems to be his security blanket. But so that's one. Don't you think it's fair to say vast majority of people reacted to that negatively?
Yes.
Okay. Then we might lose Cedric Wilson. Cedric Wilson was somebody that, like, even when we brought up the other day, 2 for 12, people are like, well, I mean, that's too much. I was thinking like 1 for 5 or something.
Yeah.
And now you're hearing rumblings that he might be shooting for 7 to 8 million, so he might move on down the road. People are upset about that. Brian Anger, like position for position, was one of your best players last year. He was second team All-Pro. We're probably going to move on from him. So the reports say. People aren't thrilled about that. Cutting Amari Cooper or DeMarcus Lawrence. People are like, you're making the team worse. It just feels like the majority of the moves that the Cowboys have either been rumored to make or are going to make have been met with negativity from the fan.
Well, and you're not hearing, obviously, when you hear Bobby Wagner getting released from Seattle, you get whether it's Bobby Belt here or other people that you're reading, they're like, look, you want me to say there's better than 0% chance? Sure, but 1% chance that the Cowboys are interested and they work out a deal with Bobby Wagner.
Yeah.
It's not happening. He's not coming here. The Cowboys aren't really that interested. He's going to another place. You can't find a free agent right now as we're getting closer to that period where I think next week we're going to start hearing rumblings of where some of these free agents are going. The kind of official signings of players, right, that we kind of get leaked before the new year starts.
Yeah.
So I would say in that, the Cowboys are linked to no players. The Cowboys are not going to sign any player that you know
Right.
that in the NFL
Right.
that they've signed. Like they might get another KZ, but we didn't know who that was when he signed last year. We're like, wait, start looking up who this dude was and what he's done.
Like when we signed J-Ron Curse, I was like, oh, cool, who cares? And then I was like, okay, I care a lot as the season went on.